The seventh episode of House of the Dragon Season 1 is titled Driftmark. The episode begins with a funeral being held for Lynna Velaryon. Everyone from the king and queen to Rhaenyra and Daemon are there. Lord Otto Hightower has been made the hand of the king again as Sir Larys ascends the seat at Harrenhal as tensions run high. As per Velaryon customs, a statue of Lynna is lowered into the sea and entrusted to the tides of Driftmark. The king himself goes to offer his condolences to Daemon on the passing of his wife. He tells him that it's now time to come home. The king also lets Daemon know that there will always be a seat for him in his court. But Daemon outright refuses. He tells the king that his home is Pentos and not King's Landing. After saying this, Daemon storms off, and after seeing that no one is paying attention to this, Rhaenyra slips off after him after telling her children to go to sleep. Throughout the funeral service, Rhaenyra kept eyeing Daemon up and was looking for a chance to talk to him, and she finally got the chance. Rhaenyra angrily tells Daemon that he abandoned her, left her alone, and fed her to the wolves. Daemon replies by saying that she was just a child and he couldn't have her. Rhaenyra confesses to Daemon that she and Ser Laenor had tried to conceive a child, but it was all in vain. She felt no joy and she had to find that elsewhere, referring to Ser Harwin. Rhaenyra leans in and kisses Daemon. Daemon hesitates, but Rhaenyra says that she's not a child anymore. Daemon kisses her back, and they end up making love right there on the beach under the moonlight. Simultaneously, Aemon Targaryen, son of the king and Alicent, musters up the courage and walks up to Vhagar, who's the largest dragon in the Seven Kingdoms, when it is sleeping on the beach. Aemon tries to mount the dragon, but Vhagar growls at him and warns him not to come near him. Aemon, however, tells the dragon to calm down, speaking to it in High Valyrian. He grabs the saddle again, and this time, the dragon allows him to. Aemon gets on top of the dragon and starts flying it around. After a bumpy start, in which he almost gets knocked off the dragon due to the sheer force of the wind, he barely holds on and starts flying the dragon like a pro. The news of someone flying Vhagar spreads throughout Driftmark and Daemon, and Lyanna's daughters wake Jacaerys up and tell him that someone has stolen Vhagar. The children hurry to the dragon pit, where Aemon lands the dragon. Baela, Daemon, and Lyanna's daughter yells at Aemon that Vhagar is her mother's dragon, to which Aemon replies, "Your mother is dead." This leads to a fight in which he calls both Rhaenyra's sons bastards. This angers Jacaerys, who takes his knife out to fight Aemond. The two girls and Jace both attack Aemond, but due to the Targaryen being a better fighter and older, he is able to overpower all of them. Just as Aemond is about to hit Jace in the head with a stone, Rhaenyra's other son, Luke, takes his blade out and cuts Aemond's eyes out. Sir Harold and other knights arrive at the scene and break off the fight. The news of the fight reaches the king, who summons everyone and is extremely angry at the Kingsguard for not being able to break the fight. Rhaenyra arrives in the room, and Jacaerys tells her that Aemon has called them bastards. She tells the king of this, and the king announces that anyone who questions the legitimacy of Princess Rhaenyra's children will have their tongue removed. The king orders everyone to apologize to one another and put the matter to bed. Alicent, however, is not content with this. She says that over merely an insult, her son lost an eye. She says that she's going to have an eye of one of Rhaenyra's sons as there is a debt to be paid. The king orders Alicent to calm down and not let her anger cloud her judgment. But Alicent steals Sir Criston's knife and rushes at Luke. Rhaenyra steps in to save her son. And in the midst of all this chaos, Alicent's blade cuts open Rhaenyra's arm, and blood starts flowing. Alicent's blade falls out of her hand, and the king yells at everyone to go to their rooms and speak no more of this matter. After the dust settles, Alicent is visited by Lord Hightower. Alicent tells her father that she knows that she made a lapse in judgment, and her error has ensured that Rhaenyra will forever soften the king's judgment. The queen says that she knows she messed up, but Lord Hightower says that, on the other side, he had never seen this side of his daughter before. He tells her that Aemond was right when he told her not to worry because he may have lost an eye, but he gained a dragon. Lord Hightower further says that in this dirty game that they're playing, that dragon is worth 1,000 times more than the eye he lost. Meanwhile, Ser Laenor comes into his room to find a bloodied family. This opens Laenor's eyes, and he apologizes profusely to Rhaenyra and tells her that from now on, he'll raise his sons to be princes and warriors, and he'll be the husband that she needs. Rhaenyra, however, has other ideas. She goes to Daemon and tells him that she needs his help to fight the Greens. and she cannot do it alone. Rhaenyra asks Daemon to marry her by saying that with Daemon as her lord husband and king consort, no one would dare question her inheritance so easily. She tells him that the Velaryons are of the sea, but they, the Targaryens, are from the fire, and they were always meant to burn together. Daemon remarks that for that to happen, they're going to have to kill Laenor. Daemon devises a plan to remove Laenor from the equation. He goes to Ser Karl and tells him that across the narrow sea, there are free cities where one can be free and nameless. He gives him some gold and tells him to give a quick death to Laenor with a few witnesses. Ser Karl, however, plans something of his own. Instead of killing Laenor, they put up a farce of fighting, and when the servant presenter runs off to get some help, they put someone else's body in the fireplace and make their escape through a boat and sail off to the free cities. This concludes the 7th episode of House of the Dragon Season 1. The 8th episode of House of the Dragon Season 1 is titled The Lord of the Tides. The episode begins with a 6-year time skip. Rhaenys Targaryen now sits atop the seat at Driftmark and hasn't seen her husband, Lord Corlys, aka the Sea Snake, during this period because he was off fighting in the Stepstones. She receives terrible news via a raven that Lord Corlys has been badly hurt in the battle, and he has a fever, which is causing him to burn from within. The maester that delivers the letter to Rhaenys also tells her that he's seen far younger men succumb to this fever and die. Vaemond Velaryon, Lord Corlys's brother, raises the issue of who will inherit the family seat after the Sea Snake's passing. He reminds Rhaenys that she's only sitting there temporarily, and after Lord Corlys's death, she will no longer hold the seat. Rhaenys reminds him that the seat will pass to Lucerys Velaryon, on the wishes of her lord husband. Vaemond, however, tells Rhaenys that he's Lord Corlys's own brother and his closest kin left, and the seat at Driftmark should go to him. He says that he cannot see his family's seat go to a bastard of the Strongs, and the crown will take his plea seriously. Rhaenys tells him that if he could hear this, her cousin, the king, would have his tongue for this. Vaemond, however, reminds her that it's not the king that sits on the Iron Throne these days, but a queen. Meanwhile, Rhaenyra receives a letter informing her that Vaemond Velaryon has petitioned the court to question the legitimacy of the birth of Lucerys and that of Jacaerys Velaryon, who is next in line to be king after Rhaenyra. Daemon calms her down by saying that Vaemond only cares about his family's seat at Driftmark and isn't after her claim to the throne. Rhaenyra says that they still have no choice but to head over to King's Landing and defend their case. So, Rhaenyra, who's now pregnant with Daemon's child, her children, and Daemon head over to King's Landing. In King's Landing, the king is very ill and bedridden and cannot even sit up, let alone rule the kingdom. Queen Alicent Hightower is instead ruling over the 7 kingdoms as Queen Regent. Alicent is heading over to the small council meeting when she learns that Rhaenyra has arrived. Rhaenyra immediately goes to visit the king, who is gravely ill and has half of his face completely bandaged. Rhaenyra introduces her and Daemon's sons, Aegon and Viserys, to the king. Viserys chuckles and remarks that Viserys is a name befitting a king. However, he is soon overcome with pain and asks Rhaenyra to hand him his tea to ease his discomfort. After this, Rhaenyra and Daemon exit the king's chambers. After meeting the king, they're greeted by Alicent. Both Daemon and Rhaenyra raise objections to how the king is being treated. Daemon accuses the Hightowers of doing whatever they please and ruling the kingdom as they wish by keeping the king on the milk of the poppy. Alicent negates that by saying that the queen and the hand are merely ruling in the king's stead and are merely the enforcers of his wishes. When Rhaenyra asks Alicent who will rule on the legitimacy of her sons, Alicent says that it'll be the queen and the hand. This sends an uneasy feeling down Rhaenyra's spine. In a desperate move, she goes to Rhaenys and offers to marry her sons to Baela and Rhaena, Rhaenys' granddaughters and Laena and Daemon's daughters, if she backs her claim in court the next day. Rhaenys terms the offer as generous but desperate, and tells her that the Hightowers will land their first strike in court tomorrow, and Rhaenyra will have no choice but to fall to her knees, and she must stand alone. The same night, Rhaenyra goes to visit her sickly father and says to him that he once told her that it was their job to keep the realm united, but by naming her as heir, Viserys has rather divided the realm. Rhaenyra cries out at the feeble state of her father, the king, and asks him to come defend her in court the next day. The king mumbles some illegible words while Rhaenyra leaves the room crying. The next day, acting on the king's behalf as the hand, Lord Hightower hears the petitions for the ascension to the seat at Driftmark. Ser Vaemond speaks first and makes his case that he's the brother of the sea snake, his last remaining closest kin, and deserves to sit on the seat. Vaemond had also met with Alicent and Otto Hightower before the court proceedings and had offered her his unwavering support if he could ascend the seat at Driftmark. It seems all but certain that the hand will rule in favor of Vaemond Velaryon. But in a shocking twist, a weak and forlorn but determined King Viserys makes his appearance in the court to help his daughter. The king is helped by Daemon up the stairs to the Iron Throne, and he says that he's confused as to why petitions are being entertained on an already settled succession. He says that the only person who can verify the sea snake's wishes is Princess Rhaenys herself. Rhaenys verifies that it was the wish of Lord Corlys that the succession goes through his son, Ser Laenor Velaryon, to his true-born son, Lucerys Velaryon. She also says that Rhaenyra has offered to marry her sons to her granddaughters, and she readily accepts the proposal. This angers Vaemond, who says that he will not allow that, calls Rhaenyra a whore, and calls her sons bastards. This angers the king, who says that he'll have Vaemond's tongue for that. But before he can pass judgment, Daemon cuts his head clean off and says, "Let him keep his tongue!" The king refused to drink the milk of the poppy, so that his judgment wasn't cloudy, and saved his daughter in the end. Afterwards, the king holds a royal banquet for his whole extended family. The king gives a moving speech, saying that he sees the people he loves the most sitting in this room, but they've grown so distant from each other. The king takes off his gold mask and lets everyone see his face. His left eye has been eaten out, and there's almost no mass left on the left side of his face. The king says that today, he wants them to see him as he is, not as the king, but rather as their father, husband, brother, and grandsire. This moves both Alicent and Rhaenyra, who give complimentary toasts to each other in an effort to mend their relationship. With everyone smiling and laughing and dining, the pain again gets overbearing for the king, and he is taken away to bed. While the elders may have made their peace, it seems as if their children had not. Aemond, who's developed into a ferocious fighter, gives a toast in which he terms all of Rhaenyra's children as big and strong, taking a dig at their lineage. A fight breaks out, which is broken up by Daemon, and Rhaenyra sends her children to their chambers. Subsequently, Alicent goes to bed to visit her husband. The king is absolutely reeling with pain. Alicent gives him the milk of the poppy to ease his pain. The king asks Alicent if she remembers what she asked him about the Song of Ice and Fire, mistaking Alicent for Rhaenyra. He tells her about Aegon's dream, and Alicent thinks that the dream is about her son, Aegon, when in actuality, the king is talking about Aegon, the conqueror's dream. The king uses the words Aegon and the prince who was promised. The king says to Alicent that you are the prince that was promised, and it has to be you, clearly under the influence of the poppy. Alicent says that she understands what she must do and goes away. Meanwhile, the king, with a tear streaming down his face, utters the words, "No more," before dying, bringing a somber end to the episode. This concludes the 8th episode of House of the Dragon Season 1.